Welcome to Empowering Xchanges, Tuesday Toast to Transformation.
Hey EmpowerX community, Serena
And Sarah here.
Your hosts on this exciting journey of conversations for and by women. Join us every Tuesday as we uncork the wisdom, share the challenges, and celebrate the victories that make us who we are.
From navigating career highs
to embracing the quirks of life, we're here for it all.
Let's raise a toast to transformation, sisterhood, and building a brighter future together. Pour your favorite beverage, tune in, and let's dive into the heart-to-heart talks that empower us all.
Cheers!
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 Here's to soft skills being relabeled as essential skills.
Yep. And our drink is Sparkle Time.
Sparkle Time!
Serena and I have talked about how, so many times we've had to dim our sparkle, our light to fit in. And I think
it's time to sparkle.
Yes. Yep. Cheers.
All right, cheers again.
It still is really dangerous.
Yeah, it is.
I love the sparkles.
It's so pretty.
It is. We're going to get distracted by just staring at it.
Put this back here.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. So, this topic, first of all, I just resonate so well with it because I feel like it's been one of my strong suits as a leader. And we talked about the last episode about being more people and purpose driven and how that is really going to bring your financial outcomes that you want as a business and an organization. And I think often you hear about these soft skills, the empathy, the emotional intelligence, the being too emotional instead of passionate, things of that nature that are synonymously usually tied to women.
Yep.
And it's almost spoken about as if they're weaknesses.
Yeah, or that they don't matter as much as being just purely revenue driven.
Right.
Or your ability to do the job, being the best at the job, and then you get a leadership position, which doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a good leader or manager just because you're good at your job.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, and I think as we're thinking back and reflecting over the past few years, I think we really saw a change in some of those studies and statistics when it came to the COVID effect on organizations.
Yeah, I think up until then, it was still very much like soft skills don't matter as much. And then you have this big crisis where people are set adrift. And they don't know what they're going to do. They don't know if they're going to get fired. They don't know if they can leave their house. And then I think during that time, we had so many more women kind of raise up. And, well, not only do we have a lot of global female leaders.
Right.
I think during that time, but we also had so many more leadership roles needing those essential skills and actually looking for them.
Yeah, I mean, if you think back to some of the studies were around some of the countries that were actually thriving during COVID were those led by women. The prime ministers of New Zealand and Finland were two prime examples of that.
Too,
and Germany as well.
Yeah.
And then you also think back to the 2020 elections, which 2020 was a rough year in the U.S. for multiple reasons.
Yeah.
But man, did we have some strong women really take the lead.
Yeah.
We voted our first vice president of the
United
States, Kamala Harris.
Whether you like her or not, it doesn't really matter. But I remember the moment that they were elected, and all of a sudden I got emotional because I was like, oh my gosh, this is the first time we have ever had a
I know,
right? It's so weird because I just didn't really realize it until she was elected. Yep. Well, Biden too, of course. But still, it's a huge deal. It's a huge deal to women, and you don't realize the impact. And all of these girls too that have finally seen someone that they can see themselves in,
represented by 100%. And then you had Stacey Abrams in Georgia, who she's an amazing activist, but a super strong female that really helped lead that state through some uncertainty.
Yeah. You had so many businesses dealing with so much. I remember, the company that I was at, we were afraid we were going to have to lay off a lot of people. We did not know if we were going to hit our numbers. We did not know so many things about what would happen during that time period. We had to make, plans of best case scenario, worst case scenario, what if things held on. But a lot of it too was, I think that the companies that did fare really well cared about their employees.
Yeah.
They took a lot of risks in maintaining people instead of letting them go immediately. But those companies didn't necessarily do bad. And then as they had to come out of COVID, they didn't have to restaff like so many companies did.
Yes, yeah. I remember physically taking on a lot of emotions, not only of trying to make sure my family was okay, but also my staff was okay, and others within the organization. I certainly wasn't a senior leader, but I was, further up, so I felt like it was my job to make sure everyone was okay.
Yeah.
And I think what a lot of leaders forgot about at that point was that humans have emotions. And those emotions will rule what happens during the day. So being able to really be honest and transparent with, like, it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
And take the mental break you need. Take the time off. You don't have to be working 24/7 just because you are now at home all the time.
Yeah.
Stand up, walk around, get outside, do some of those things that are going to rejuvenate yourself. I think that's really when the self-care became more prominent too. And talking about some of these issues that for a long time we swept under the rug as can't talk about that, or that looks like weakness.
Yeah.
So I think that as we come into a year where AI is certainly top of mind within organizations.
And so many tech companies have had to do giant layoffs.
Yes.
And people are having a hard time finding jobs. I mean, you come from this crazy swing, right? Where there were layoffs in 2020, crazy hiring sprees in 2021, where they had crazy high salaries, and the people are realizing, maybe we've hired too much instead of what we should have done. And now there's these massive layoffs, and so many people are looking for jobs and aren't in a great position.
Right. 100%.
All because you had maybe leaders, frankly, who didn't think about their people, didn't think about what the right steps were, what the safer steps were going to be. I don't think anybody else can be blamed for a lot of these layoffs except for people in charge. And, I've been in charge. I have to take the blame. You've been in charge.
Yeah, absolutely.
You take the blame. That is on you no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. We're the ones in charge of the budgets. We're the ones, trying to figure out what the headcount is for the year, pulling the trigger on that. And unfortunately, if we're thinking more towards how do we make goals, but forgetting about the actual impact on the people, then we're falling short as leaders too.
There's this really good book I read, I think a couple of years ago. It's called People Over Profits, over Profit. And I think that really impacted me because I realized that profits will come if you treat your people well. And I truly, truly believe in that. I know I work harder if somebody cares about me and they think about me. I know my teams have always worked harder because I've actually cared about them and their success. But especially right now, I think people are so concerned about those profits, and they're laying off all of these team members, and they're going to realize, next year, you're going to have to motivate everyone again. You're going to have to motivate your high performers. And, statistics show if you have huge layoffs, your high performers will leave.
Yes.
Or a good chunk of them.
Yeah.
A good chunk of them will.
And while the unemployment area, at least in the U.S., has been, volatile.
Yeah.
I think and that may be what's keeping certain folks in positions that they're in right now. As that starts to turn around and we're starting to see more folks readjust to the downturn in economics, you're going to see those folks saying, I've had enough of this. I'm not going to put up with this.
And I think for years people have been saying that. And they're like, I'm not going to take another job that isn't going to care about me, that isn't going to actually allow me to maybe work from home or have flexible hours because my kid needs to go to the doctor or whatever it may be. So those skills in those leaders
it's going to become even more important.
Yeah.
And then you throw the mix of AI into it. Yeah. And so if you're thinking, I'm going to get rid of 20 people because AI is going to take over their jobs. I'm sorry.
Not yet. Especially not yet. Especially not yet.
Especially not yet. It's still in its infancy as far as it goes with being integrated into organizations.
I think it makes people more proficient and efficient.
Yes.
But I don't think it replaces them. Not yet.
No.
Not yet.
And so these what have been dubbed soft skills, I think become even more essential.
Yeah.
You've got now employers that if they don't want to see that max exodus, they're going to have to figure out how to improve their employee engagement.
Yeah.
They're going to have to make sure that they're taking care of their people, that they're paying them well, that they're giving them the benefits that matter, not the ones they think they should give them, but what actually
matters.
Fridays. Prioritizing those human needs over the business needs sometimes. But again, I think it's sometimes a short-term fix when you just are constantly going after those numbers.
Oh, yeah.
I think when you invest in people, that's the long-term play.
Yeah, yeah. And it doesn't mean that when you're running a business, you aren't thinking about the numbers, that you don't have numbers to hit, especially if you have investors. But if you are only thinking about that and you think of your employees just as like a number on the page, you're not fully understanding the impact that not only that has on the team that stays, but on your productivity.
Absolutely.
You cannot hit those numbers without having enough people to produce. You can't expect one person who stays to do the job of two, at least not for long.
100%. Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of burnout this year.
Yeah.
Well, let's back that up. I think there's been a lot of burnout.
I think that's the problem. I think it's going to hit the head, right?
Yes,
like,
exactly.
People have been burnt out since 2020, and they've left. I mean, I went to this company called Malomo because they were phenomenal.
Right.
They were so good to their people. Yeah, if you ever see this, you are amazing. I mean, that's why I left, and I think that's one point in my career. Now I've learned that lesson of that matters much more than anything else.
Yeah.
Having real leaders who really care about you, care about their people, will matter more than going to a company that doesn't.
100%. So, bringing this back around to us as women.
Yeah.
Again, I think we have been conditioned to think of these super skills as soft skills and as weaknesses and as points of emotional, more so than any of the drive that's going to get the business where it needs to and all of that. And I think that now is when we can use these and harness these as our superpowers.
Yeah.
I think this is what's going to set us apart next year and the years going forward.
And I think companies have to realize the power in them too.
Yes,
and I'm hoping that in the next few years they're going to start realizing this. I know a lot of companies have figured this out since COVID, and a lot of articles are showing that people in leadership need those essential skills more than anything.
Right.
Essential being soft skills. That's clear.
Yes.
They need them more to actually do a good job leading, and that's the most important factor. Emotional intelligence is bigger than IQ. But I think a lot of companies still have to start realizing that, if women are the only ones advocating for their employees' feelings, for the company employees, not just their own employees, in those leadership roles, I think they're going to miss out on a lot. And at some point, you can't be shouting from a hilltop and nobody be listening to you. You're either going to leave or you're going to give up.
Yeah. It's also, I think, we forget about the trust factor that it creates. And being able to create more meaningful and deeper human relationships.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I'm not saying that you have to be best friends with everyone at work or that those are going to be, some of your best friends or what have you. But being able to work together as a team and create that type of environment where you're inclusive and everyone matters and
you listen
to
everyone too.
It creates that trust, it creates that loyalty that's not only going to serve that team well, it's going to serve the company well, it's going to serve you as a leader or you as an employee better when you know that you can be trusted and that your team can trust you as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've quoted this so many times. Yeah. I know you've heard me say this, but there's a study by Google when they were trying to understand the top performing teams and what was that factor? You know, is it that they go out for drinks afterwards?
Right,
is it they understand each other? Like, what is that makes people truly productive? And they found that the common factor was trust. You know, you don't necessarily build that by going out and having cocktails. It's the ability to be open and honest with each other, and give feedback, receive feedback, knowing it's coming from a good place. And the only way that you can have that is through your leader. Your leader has to set that tone. And there's so many instances where people are in leadership and they think they know better. They think they know everything. They're not listening to their teammates. And eventually you will have a very underperforming team.
100%. Yeah, being a leader to me has always meant, and I think there's that famous Simon Sinek quote that it's not about being in charge, it's about taking care of those in your charge.
Yep.
And as a leader, yes, there are certain types of companies, especially in startups, where you're an individual contributor as a leader.
Yeah.
But I think it far outweighs what you can contribute yourself if you're not thinking about how you contribute to the team and how you are supporting them instead of managing them, instead of making sure that they're on top of things, you're hitting your goals one after another. Of course, you have to create that momentum and that desire and drive to hit those goals. But in order to do so, you have to actually come down to the human level too.
Yeah.
And be able to influence hearts, minds, and souls as to why this is important and why we're working together towards this.
Yeah.
And when it goes wrong, being, putting yourself out there and showing humility.
Yeah.
When I hate this so much, when leaders look for someone else to blame.
Yeah. Or they're not, you don't have to tell everybody every detail, but when they're not honest and transparent too.
Right.
Like, everybody understands that, especially people who are doing the day-to-day job. They know what is happening. And if you're not telling people you understand that and that you're open with everybody, it's a huge red flag.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah, I think as we step into 2024 and as we really start evaluating the environments that we're in and the people that are surrounding us, I think that emotional intelligence, empathy, compassion, all of those, again, soft skills that we're now rebranding as essential skills are going to be incredibly important and are going to ultimately, I think, sustain the best performing organizations.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a big reason why we are trying to build what we're building. Eventually we want to have large teams. And the only way we can do that, and the only way we want to do that, is by caring about people and not seeing them just as a number, individually understanding them, what drives them, and how can we again put people over profits.
And ultimately, doesn't that just mean authenticity?
Yeah, I mean, for us.
Leading with who you actually are as a human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think when we say live fearlessly authentic, I think we're always trying to find ways to sparkle.
Yeah.
But to also be able to just be real. There are probably instances where we'll still have to filter things a little bit here and there, but it shouldn't change your entire persona.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've learned that throughout my career. I know, especially at the beginning of my career, it was so much harder to be myself. I was a little bit quieter. I was a little meeker. I know it's hard to believe. You're like, what? But eventually, like, you just have to be you. You have to understand that the only way that you're going to be happy is by being yourself.
Absolutely.
No, you're right. Sometimes you do have to filter things, but sometimes you have to make those decisions of what you think is right for your people, for you, maybe ahead of the company. But I think if the company is also thinking those things, they should align.
Absolutely. All right. So Cheers.
Still sparkling.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Get a little swirl.
Yeah.
Cheers,
Cheers.
to
Sparkling and being yourself and actually
Ooh.
caring about people.
That's right. All right.
Essential skills now.
Essential skills, not soft. Sparkle.
Well, that's a wrap on another episode of Empowering Exchanges. We hope you enjoyed this chat and would love to hear your suggestions for additional topics on challenges, triumphs, and the laughter that bonds us together.
Don't forget to hit subscribe, share the love, and join us next Tuesday for another dose of wisdom, wit, and warmth. Keep shining, keep thriving, and keep toasting to the incredible journey of womanhood.
Until next time, cheers.
Cheers!